to Drawing Conclusions with me, Christina B. I've been gone for a while, but I'm back with the vengeance, ready for these murder mysteries with a masterpiece. So yeah, I've been gone for a while. It was my birthday, then I had a vacation from work, and then I was just lazy, if we're just going to be honest, because shooting videos and editing and stuff is way more time consuming than I thought it was. I don't know how many people actually make YouTube videos and stuff, but way more goes into like shooting the video, editing, uploading, and all that stuff than one would think, than what I thought. So yeah, I got lazy for a few weeks there, and yeah, but now we're back. We're back and better than ever. So I do want to start this new segment. So I'll be uploading 2 videos a week starting next week. I want to start a new segment called Talk to Me Tuesday, where we talk about just random things, anything that pops into my mind, anything that's like popular news, viral stories, things of that nature. For the first video that I wanted to do, I wanted to talk about 3 different things that kind of all center around the same thing. So when I first came up with the idea to do the Talk to Me Tuesday, it was because I had seen the video where the Department of Defense was being questioned about the curriculum at West Point, the military academy. And one of the guys, can't remember the name and stuff because it's been weeks since I've been here, but he talked about white rage and learning about like critical race theory and things of that nature, and how it was important for the boys who would become the men that are in our military and are responsible for, you know, protecting us and this country. So I want to talk about that. I also wanted to talk about Tila Tequila. I don't know if y'all heard about her talking crazy about black women, but she has been. And like a couple other stories that go along that line. So that was what I want to do for my first video, Talk to Me Tuesday, which will be coming out next Tuesday. Please let me know down in the comments if you guys are interested. I know it's not that many of y'all, but I think it would be an interesting thing to do, and you'll get to see my face more if you're into that. But yeah, so moving on and off of rambling, because y'all know I ramble, we're going to get into today's case. And today's case, I was like kind of stuck between whether I should call it like a mother's love or a mother's revenge, because as a mother, I totally and completely get it. I'm not saying that this is the path that I would have chosen. Everybody reacts differently to things, so I really can't even say what I would do. I don't think any of us could say what we would do in this given situation, but this is a decision that this mother made, and we're not going to talk shit about it, you know? She did what she had to do. And so without further ado, we're going to get right into our case for today. And our picture for today is of a tea kettle. And I don't know if y'all ever can see like the line drawing, because I don't draw it too dark. But yeah, our picture of the day is of a tea kettle, and you will see why shortly. And I was told it's kind of cryptic to do the tea kettle, but we're doing it. So today's case is our first international case. It takes place at a home on Highfield Road in the town of Neston, Cheshire, which is in England. So at this Neston Avenue house, all hell was breaking loose. This is the home of Corrina Smith and her husband of 38 years, Michael Baines. Now, Corrina did, of course, since she was married, you know, to Michael, she did go by Corrina Baines. That was her name. Since this incident, she has gone back to her maiden name, which is Smith. So Corrina and Michael, in their 38 years together, they had 2 children. They had a daughter who was not named, but she was the oldest, and she was Corrina's child from a previous relationship. It didn't specify, whether she was married to this child's father or not. But this daughter is the child that she had from a previous relationship whenever she met Michael. And then the two, Corrina and Michael, had one child together, a son. They had one child together, a son whose name was Craig Baines. So, and I wasn't able to find Corrina's birthday. They report things differently in England than they do in America. I mean, in America, pretty much, like, once you're in the system, all your stuff is, like, public knowledge, and you can really find out anything about a person, to be honest. I don't know if they don't have that, as far as I know, in England. If they do, I wasn't able to find it in my research. But you know how, like, in America, they have, like, the inmate lookups and everything is, like, common knowledge. Like, you can just go look up any jail or prison in the country, and it'll tell you, like, if the person that you're looking for is in the prison, what their charges are, what their expected release date is, and then let you know, like, their birth date, and like, in a lot of cases, they like address and all that shit. It's like public knowledge once you enter the system. Maybe England's a little bit more humane, and they still consider you a person even though you're in prison, so they don't just, like, put all your information out there. But anywho, so I was able to find out Corrina's birthday, so we don't know her sign, but I thought it was interesting that at the time of this incident, Corrina was 59 and Michael 81, which makes them 21 and 43 respectively when they got married. I don't know. I always feel like relationships with really big age gaps are a red flag. Like, yeah, they were both grown. She was in her 20s, 21. He was in his 40s, 43. But it's just like, you're 22 years older than her. What's your interest? You know what I mean? Like, maybe that's just me. I'm just a naturally skeptical person, because it's just, why would you be interested in somebody that much younger than you? Well, what are you guys talking about? You know what I mean? Well, what things do we have in common? But anywho, so on July 13th, 2020, Corrina's daughter allegedly came to her and disclosed to her that Michael, who she had known the majority of her life as her father, had sexually abused her and also her brother Craig. And it was stated when the daughter told her this, that this abuse had gone on for many years. And allegedly, Corrina had no idea, like, that her husband had been abusing their own children. So of course she was disgusted, shocked, appalled, all the feelings that you would have finding this information out, especially if you're finding it out like X amount of years later, because it happened from the time when they were children, and now they're grown adults, like in their freaking 30s, and it's just no coming out that, dad has been molesting and sexually assaulting us for years. Back in 2007, about 14 years ago, Craig, when he was 25 at this time, committed suicide. And the day before he committed suicide, he sat down and talked to his mother, and he told her that he had been sexually abused as a child, and that it had really been bothering him and affecting him in his adult life. They did have a conversation about it, but he did not disclose who to the mother at this time who it was that had been, sexually abusing him. But he had gotten arrested for assault on this guy that happened to be a known pedophile in the area. He got arrested for assault, and so after getting out of the jail and all of that, he's talking to his mother and basically giving the reason for the assault as, this has been done to me all my life, and just knowing that he was a pedophile, I kind of just snapped, And it happens, we hear about stuff like that happening, and like, as you could imagine, the conversation, became heated. It's a very emotional subject, and he ended the conversation by, just like kind of aggressively saying, "Mom, he's a pervert," and walking away. She felt like the conversation had gotten a little bit out of hand, a little bit heated. So instead of like, chasing him down to continue talking about it, she decided just to give him a little bit of time, a few moments or whatever, maybe a day, to calm down and, try to deal with this how he saw fit, and the next day she would, go back and continue talking to him. And when they closed their conversation and he stormed out saying, "Mom, he's a pedophile," she assumed that he was talking about the guy that he had just been arrested for attacking. Though unfortunately they wouldn't be able to further discuss this the next day, because the next day Craig took his own life. So at the age of 25, he committed suicide, and the topic pretty much was just brushed under the rug after that, because he had passed away. There wasn't really much that could be done as far as finding out, like who had molested him, what had been going on, things of that nature. So, in Corrina's mind, it was like, well, all of that kind of just died off with Craig, and it was, dead and buried in a sense. And they tried their best to move on. And then in 2020, the daughter comes and alleges it's dad. Dad's been molesting us. Dad's the reason why Craig killed himself. When he told you about the pedophile, he was talking about dad. It had to be affecting the daughter as well. Like I said, they didn't disclose what the daughter's name was, but I'm sure it was affecting her in much of the same ways that it had been affecting Craig all this time. So of course, all this time, this 14, 15 years, Corrina had been feeling guilty about her son's passing. She felt like she really didn't do enough to talk to him. She didn't take it seriously enough in the moment and recognize that this was a cry for help. And she really took this hard and felt like that she had failed her child, as probably any good parent would feel. It's like, I missed the signs. If I had kept talking to him, would he have, not made the decision to end his life? If I had prodded harder, if I had paid attention when he was a kid, just the little things. I'm sure it's something that she thought about constantly. What could I have done differently? What did I miss? How could this happen and I just not know about it? So of course, after all these years of blaming herself, after all these years of grieving for her child, and then her daughter comes in and is like, our dad, your husband, is the reason, the cause for all of this that you've been going through. Corrina was undoubtedly enraged, like pissed. So Corrina was pissed, and in her anger, she put a plan together. So in the early morning hours of July 14th, which the conversation she had with her daughter was on the evening of July 13th. So she essentially like set up all night, thinking, formulating what to do. And she finally, in the early morning hours of the 14th, came to a decision as to what it is she was gonna do. So she went into her garden, which I've learned that the British, English, what have you, they call their yards gardens, because I was like, because I watch other, British stuff, read other British stuff, and I was like, it's amazing that everybody in the freaking country has a front garden and a back garden. And I was like, that's amazing. It's damn near against the law to have a freaking garden in America where you can like actually produce your own fruits and vegetables and stuff, like, and just everybody in England has a front garden and a back garden. But it's just verbiage. They essentially just mean yard. So she went out into her backyard or her back garden, and she went to the well and got some water, and she took her water inside and put it into the tea kettle and heated it up on the stove. And as the water was, getting ready to get to boil, she decided, let's amp it up a notch. So she took a few bags of sugar and added it to the water. And she waited patiently for this mixture to boil. And if you've ever done any type of cooking, essentially sugar and water, when you boil them, they make a candy substance. It's like very viscous, sticky, kind of like I guess like going towards like a caramel type thing. But it makes this like thick, viscous liquid, because it's still liquid, like hot cornstarch, kind of. So yeah, so she took this mixture, her hot bubbling water sugar mixture, and she waited for it to boil. Now it took 13 minutes for this mixture to boil, because unlike regular water, with it having the sugar added in, it does make the boiling time a little bit longer. And this 13 minutes was like one of the focal points in her case, because this, to the prosecution, or to the Crown, which is what they call their pretty much just the governing body that is prosecuting you, but the Crown or the prosecution really focused on that 13 minutes as premeditation, because as she stood there for 13 minutes, she could have decided, to act differently, to turn the stove off, to call the police, to do something else. But she did not. She waited patiently for the full 13 minutes, and then she took her tea kettle full of melted candy, essentially, and went into the room where Michael was sleeping peacefully, and she poured the mixture onto his body. Now, she allegedly stated that she tried her best to get it onto like every portion of his body, but the majority of the liquid did get onto like his chest and midsection area, onto his arms, up around like the neck area. That's where the majority of the liquid got. And of course it was very painful. So this woke Michael up out of his sleep, with him screaming, hollering in pain. And Corrina after pouring this liquid on him and now he's screaming and writhing in pain, she went to a neighbor's house to have them call for help. And this was also a point of contention for the Crown, because it was like she went to the neighbor's house 9 doors down. Like, she didn't go next door. She didn't go to the house beside that. She didn't go to the house beside that. She went 9 doors down to a neighbor that she barely knew, because it's 9 houses away. Like, unless you're just like that friendly who is making friends with a neighbor, you know what I'm saying, that far away. Most people don't know the neighbor right next to them. I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know my neighbor. But so yeah, which was another point of contention, because it was like you went as far away as you could to have somebody make the call, when, you know, it's 2020. Most people don't have house phones anymore, but like 99.28, not a real number, percent of people have cell phones. So many people have cell phones to the point it makes the house phone obsolete. And she decided to go 9 doors down to this neighbor she didn't know in the early morning hours of the morning, which, when they say early morning hours, is like between 2 and 6 a.m. So she had to wake up some random neighbor out of their sleep and have them call emergency services. And that's what happened. So this neighbor, she went and told them, you know, there was an emergency, her husband needed medical attention, yada yada. And this neighbor called the ambulance for her, and they came for Michael. Now, when the emergency services got there, they stated that Michael was on the bed, he was screaming and writhing in pain, and that the skin was already starting to like slough off of his hand. Because, you know, when you get 3rd-degree burns, it takes your skin off. It burns like down to the muscle, I believe. Because there's, you know, degrees of burns. And 3rd degree is the most like traumatizing. 3rd degree is like the worst type of burn that you can get. And his skin was already coming off on his hand, and of course he was screaming rather than pain. And they took him, you know, onto the hospital, and they did get him there. And this sugar liquid, because like I said, it's thick, it's viscous, it was so hard for the hospital to actually get off of his skin. Like, getting it off caused just as much damage as having it on did. And this was another point that they made at her trial, because they said that she chose specifically to add the water into the sugar for the purpose of causing, you know, the most pain and anguish to Michael as she could. And it's like, duh. You freaking molested my child to the point that he killed himself. But they were able to get this liquid off of Michael. It did take off a good portion of his skin. He had 3rd-degree burns to 36% of his body. That's over a third of his body. That is a very detrimental injury. A large portion of his body is burned with the skin coming off, 3rd-degree burns. So he had to have numerous surgeries, multiple skin grafts, things of that nature, to try to fix the damage that was done. And it took a little while, but eventually they did get him stable. They got him in pretty good condition, and the prognosis was pretty good. You know, like, he's definitely gonna have a bunch of scarring and things of that nature, but it was thought that, you know, that Michael would survive. even though he seems to be doing good, his prognosis was good. After 5 weeks, Michael took a turn for the worse. He started to decline, and he ultimately succumbed to his injuries, and he passed away on August 18th of 2020. So we're coming up on the like 1 year anniversary of his passing. And so with him passing, this upgraded the charges for Corrina to murder. And then it gets into, is this premeditated murder, or is this, a crime of passion because of the circumstances? And all of that has to be taken into consideration because, as I said before, on one hand, she stood there and waited for the water to boil for 13 minutes. That can show premeditation, because you would think that while you're standing there for 13 minutes, this would possibly be the longest 13 minutes of your life. You're weighing out all your options. You're knowing, okay, when this occurs, there's a possibility that he's gonna die. I'm going to go to prison, and she stood there in the 13 minutes and decided that whatever the risk was worth the reward, and she decided to do it. So that was the argument for premeditation. But her defense, of course, argued that this is a crime of passion because after hearing from her daughter, just mere hours after hearing from her daughter, that her husband of almost 40 years that she now has lived her entire life with, she's known this man since she was 21, has sexually assaulted both of her children, causing one of them to end his own life. And she just threw all reason to the wind and decided, this is what needs to be done. So that can be an argument for a crime of passion, because how would you act in that situation? What would you do? A lot of us can say, well, I wouldn't go boil sugar water and throw it on him. I wouldn't kill him. I would call the authorities, get justice in that way. I would call the authorities and get justice in that way. But we really can't say. We really don't know. I thankfully have never been in that situation and hopefully never will be. But as a mom, there's not much that I wouldn't do for my kid. And it's hard enough to deal with the passing of a child, but to find out that this passing was caused by his own father and the actions that that father took against the child behind your back, I feel like that's the route that a lot of parents would take. And this is not a one-off case. There have been cases of parents doing just, exactly this when finding out who their children's attackers, predators, what have you are. But a lot of people condemned her, you don't take the law into your own hands. That's not the proper thing to do. You don't let your emotions get the better of you in that way. Things that as adults, we all say and try our best to do. But in that situation, what would you do? And I just don't know. Which is why I can't condemn this woman. Because she was protecting her child, her children. And you do what you have to do for the babies. So as I said, this was these were points that these were all points that had to be weighed and thought about in her conviction and her sentencing. The judge was a woman, and I felt like she was pretty understanding. Of course, the law is the law. You're going to be punished because you have murdered someone. But she seemed to be as understanding as a judge could be in the situation. But the judge, in taking all that in consideration, felt that the charge should be murder. And so Corrina, in June of this year, just 2 months ago, was convicted of murder. And Corrina argued against this, saying that she should not be found guilty of murder, but should have been charged with manslaughter instead due to a loss of control. At her sentencing, she just had her sentencing hearing in July 9th, and she was sentenced to life. She did get life with the possibility of parole, but she has to serve at least 12 years before she would be eligible and up to go, like against the parole board or whatnot. So in 2033, she would be able to go up against, well, I'm not sure like the process they have in England, but here you go before the board. You give your case for why you're a better person, why you deserve to be let out, and then they make a decision. But yeah, guys, while I'm finishing up, what do you think about this? Like I said, this is a hard one for me because I'm a mom. I can't say that I would just like go pour hot sugar water on somebody that has done something to my kid. But at the same time, I can't say that I wouldn't. I mean, if there's ever a reason to go to jail, it would most definitely be behind my children. As old as I am now, I can't find many things worth risking my freedom for. But for my babies, I would with no hesitation. So, I certainly get it. But the law is also the law. So, I mean, she decided that that was the choice that she was going to make, and she had to accept the consequences of her actions. And I mean, I applaud her in a way. I mean, her children are grown. Her remaining child is grown, so it's not like, she really orphaned her children or anything like that. They're grown, probably with kids of their own. And she did what she felt was necessary. I do think the one point that the judge made was valid, that Michael can never be held accountable because Corrina took that portion of the law into her own hands. So Michael can't be convicted. The children can't get justice in the sense that, Michael goes to prison and is listed as a pedophile, child abuser, whatever, for the things that he did to his children. There's no way of finding out if this was done to other children, because it did seem in my reading that Michael had other children from a previous relationship as well. Just like we said that Corrina, her daughter, was from a previous relationship, it seemed that Michael also had kids from a previous relationship. So now we won't know unless they decide to come out and speak on it, which they probably won't. but we won't know if the same thing happened to these children. I mean, Michael was almost 50 whenever he met and married Corrina. So it's like he had a whole life of whatever he was doing out there before he met Corrina. There could be children, you know, from women he dated. There could be children from things he did in the community, if he went to church, you know, like if he volunteered anywhere, things like that. There could be a host of children that Michael abused that nobody will ever know about, and that essentially won't ever get justice for the things that were done to them. But I mean, if you believe in street justice, Michael got that. It was like, yeah, she took the law into her hands. She didn't let him get prosecuted in the traditional sense, but he's still indeed paid for his crimes. He just had to pay for them with his life. And it's a very conflicting situation because, you know, you're taught your whole life, murder is wrong, you shouldn't kill anybody. But, you know, people are killed every day, all the time. What are your limits? What is worth killing for you? Because I always say, you know, I could never kill anybody. If I was like fighting for my life, I don't think that I would be able to do it. You know, they would probably just have to kill me. But would I for my children? You know what I mean? Because, like, I'm one of those type of people, I'll fight harder for you than I do for myself in a lot of situations. Like, for myself, it's like, it's not worth it. I don't feel like it. You know, I'll find a way to get up out of that. But for people I care about, I do the most. And I have not found anybody that I care about more than my children. I mean, let's just be honest. Love my mama, love my brother to death. They're like my top two. But they were quickly replaced by my kids. Like, as soon as them suckers popped out, they took spots 1 and 2. And everybody else just gotta fall in place because the kiddies come first. So I tried to do an easy picture because it's a short story. But I hate, like, having to rush and do it in the time to fit the story because look how junky it looks. Like, it looks like a 3rd grader did it. But anywho, so we have our picture, our tea kettle, which is not perfect by any means. I rushed and did it, but I finished in the time to tell the story. So what do you guys think? Do you think that Corrina was justified in her actions, or do you think that she should have gone the legal route and, you know, called the police and had him prosecuted for his crimes? I'm still very conflicted on it. It's more so of a moral conundrum in my eyes, because yeah, it's bad to beat people up, but you're beating up somebody that raped a child. Yeah, it's bad to commit murder, but you murdered somebody that raped your child to death, essentially. You raped the child to the point where he was mentally not okay, and the only option he had was to take his life. I don't know. I can go round and round in circles about this for days. I don't know. And hopefully, prayerfully, I will never be put in a situation where I will have to find out what I would do. I pray that's never the case. But thank you so much for coming and spending the evening with me. Thank you for discussing this case with me. I'm so glad to see you guys come back, for the ones that did come back. And if you're new here, thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed our time this evening. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. If you didn't like it, hit the dislike button and talk shit if you got to. I still love you. Be great. Be you. I'll see you soon.